What's up, you guys? I had an interview with Joshua Spodek, and this is just one part of it. I think that you guys should watch this entire video series from part 1 if you can. So if you haven't watched part 1 already, start at part 1 and watch through it. Every single part of this talk was amazing. A lot of it was very motivating, very powerful, and I just found it so important in terms of learning about leadership and how to lead in the environment. It's a fantastic talk. If you haven't already, I highly recommend starting from part 1. This is part 2, so here we go.
We all feel it. I feel it all the time. Like, should I do this or that? I'm like, and then the tug to do what's easy, even though I know that it's not rewarding in the long run. I feel it just as much as anyone. Mm-hmm. That's the addiction speaking. When someone says, "Oh, you can do it, but I can't." And do they, I've not had someone say, "Oh, that sounds like you've put a lot of effort into figuring that out. Probably years worth of research and work and trial and error." I would love for someone to say that because that's what actually happened. Mm-hmm. But that's not what they say. They say, "Oh, it's easy for you somehow."
Right.
For me though, because people are like, "Oh, you don't have kids." But my role model, what's her name? Her name escapes me for a second. But she's been on the podcast too. Uh-huh. Family of 4. Mom, dad, 2 sons, produces less garbage per year than I do. The full family, all 4 people, all of them together produce less than I do.
That's pretty crazy.
So it's not kids. And also, when I think of how the garbage that I produce.
Sorry to interrupt really quick, but just to give everybody a perspective, how much garbage do you use?
So one bag a year. So let's see if people can see that canvas bag on the chair.
Yep.
That is now 1 year and 2 days, 377 days, 368, no, a little over 365 days worth of garbage.
That's amazing.
And the recycling is roughly the same. So that's underneath the sink.
Right. And they use even less than that for a family of 4, did you say? Yeah,
they use like a mason jar.
Jeez.
B Johnson, BEA, first name, last name Johnson. Look her up, read her book. And watch your TEDx talks. Watch mine too.
I will.
So what was I saying when you stopped me?
What were you saying when I stopped you? I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that I get that in there, like how much.
So let me go back to the addiction speaking. So when people have all sorts of excuses why they can't do it, and the mind doesn't rationally decide what to do. It justifies after deciding emotionally what it wants to do. So when people, they have their sets of rewards and they get their they live the way they live. And for most people, flying in their mind means seeing my mom who lives on the other coast. It means that's how I make a living. Not flying, therefore, is never seeing my mom again. It means losing my way of living. And so if they hear that someone else is not flying, they think, well, I have to fly to make a living. I guess Josh doesn't have to make a living. He just like has a money tree and just gets money wherever he wants. Mm-hmm. They don't think past that. So the addiction speaking is how we say, well, there's nothing I can do anyway, so I'll just justify the old behavior. And people will find anything that they can. And once it's in their mind, once their mind has said, oh, I can't do it because of X, then they can't do it because of X.
Right.
So that's why people give those reasons, like, oh, I have kids and you don't. Mm-hmm. Actually, it would be much easier if I didn't have. Oh, that's what I was saying. When I produce, there's packaging in there. I get some packaged food, but it would be divided by 2 if I had someone else here. If at the times when someone's lived with me, mm-hmm. then I know that the waste per person is less because there's economies of scale. Mm-hmm. So most of the excuses people give are actually reasons that would be easier. So B. Johnson, her husband, who's a finance guy, I think, mm-hmm. he went through and found out they were saving 40% off their budget by the zero waste stuff that she was doing.
Wow.
It generally saves money. And when people say to me, oh, you don't know what it's like in the food desert, they got to buy the McDonald's. It's like it saves them time and money because it's so much cheaper. It doesn't. McDonald's is not doing anyone any favors. McDonald's is not saving anyone money or time.
Right.
They're more pressed for time because of that, not less.
And they're
but
certainly
people
not
don't get
helping
it.
people to be healthier.
You have to live it. I recognize that what I'm saying now is for most people falling on deaf ears, as it would have for me several years ago. I would not have believed that this was possible, and I would have had whatever excuses anyone's ever said to me. I would have had more.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to experience it. You have to get from one system, from one culture. Other cultures look crazy, but then when you get into the other culture and you start recognizing it, you're like, oh, I see how that works here.
Right.
It works too. And from the old culture, the new culture looks crazy. But from the new culture, the old culture looks crazy. And once you've sampled a couple different ways, you can say, oh, I see. I can choose what values I want to live by. It doesn't have to be handed to me.
Right.
And once you do that, you can say, well, if I can choose which way I want to live, I can maximize my happiness instead of my material possessions. Mm-hmm. I can maximize my stewardship and relationships to others over picking things for myself that I enjoy, even though they're hurting other people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot to think about right there. Like with those kinds of things, it's like frustrating almost to figure out how do you transmit that feeling, the feeling that comes from, I did this, I made this change, it made my life better, but no matter how much I say it, it's not going to come across until they actually are able to live it for themselves.
Well, the big thing in your mental shift there is them. You have to start with empathy, mm-hmm. listening, caring about the other people. In my case, it's come up with a couple strategies: the one-on-one strategy and the group strategy. And I recommend to everyone try those things, mm-hmm. and I hope people come up with things that are even more effective.
Is the group strategy one is that in your book also?
That emerged mostly from Sandy, the podcast guest, who pointed out about the installing solar passing by a community.
Ah.
So
okay.
That has not been proven out yet. So far, a few people contact me and say, I've listened to your podcast and I'm changing because of that. Uh-huh. That's rare. But I can tell you this. There are zero role models of people who are living sustainably and sharing with the world mm-hmm. a joy. Even Greta is like, you got to panic. And I don't know if you saw the movie I'm Greta, but when she's on the boat, she's miserable. I don't want to say she's miserable, but she's not like when I sail across the Atlantic, and I was supposed to, I took sailing lessons before Greta sailed, and I was supposed to go this past spring. Uh-huh. When I sail across the Atlantic, I may be puking the whole way. I don't know. I haven't been on a boat for that long, but that will be the surface. Deep down, I'm going to love it. I know. I mean, it's possible that I won't like it, but I suspect that it will be my net joy from travel will be greater, even though my total miles traveled is much less.
Right.
And if I've been flying all this time,
right,
I'm going to love it. And actually, with my food in the winter, we're getting into winter in New York, and soon there will be no more greens at the farmers markets, and it'll be radishes and turnips and rutabagas and parsnips and beets and all the root vegetables. Mm-hmm. Actually, I've learned to sprout the beans, the legumes, so I'll get greens from the sprouted mung beans and so forth. That's new for me. But learning how to make what you have delicious actually puts me more in touch with people in other cultures and cuisines than if I went there. Like, I've been to Thailand. It's my favorite food in the world. And I've eaten at Thai restaurants. And I know that they say do like it Thai mild. Mm-hmm. There's like Western mild or Western spicy, and there's Thai mild and Thai spicy. And like, have you been to Thailand? Have you tried the spicy?
I have, yeah. I have actually been to Thailand. And yeah, definitely. They have different levels of spiciness, that's for sure. And for me, after living in Japan for so long, my spiciness tolerance has definitely dropped since my days in Korea.
So Thai mild is like insanity for me. Mm-hmm. It's like one bit of food and then I got to layer on all the rice. So I know that whatever I'm eating in Thailand, as much as I love it, is not really Thai food. It's like special for the tourists. And yeah, you can get authentic in various different places, but it's still like this lovely little cafe that, you know. Now, by contrast, actually, I can say that my dad studies India, and he's lived in India for, I don't know, 10, 15 years of his life. So when I visited him back when I was flying, we went to people's homes and we got food like that people made for their families. It was way better than the stuff in the restaurants. Way, way better. I took him for his birthday to this super luxury, nice restaurant, which was like insanely expensive at like $2 or $3 a dish for India. And it was not nearly as good as the stuff in people's homes. So my takeaway is that when I have to eat what's here, what people for centuries have been eating before we flying everything around all the time, I actually feel more connected, and I learn more about different cuisines by doing that than by buying the mangoes, which are available 12 months out of the year.
Right.
So this is an illustration of how my life is. Everything that people say, it's like, it's this weird backward world where everyone's like, oh, you don't get to see other cultures. I'm like, you're going to the zoo. I mean, yeah, I've been to other places and I've seen other things. And I like being in India means that it reset my understanding of poverty. I should say rather, since I spent my childhood there, my understanding of poverty is different than had I not been there. And I've been to North Korea. That's a very different world. And I've seen the Grand Canyon. And so here's a criticism I can't really respond to. Maybe you've seen enough and others haven't, and shouldn't they get to experience what you have? But I can tell you that I would rather have made the shift earlier.
Right.
So if people don't know, I haven't flown, and I'll start my 6th year pretty soon. And I never said I'm going to never fly again. I said I'm not going to fly for 1 year to see how that would go, thinking it was going to be horrible. And a few months in, I was like, oh, I'm getting more adventure, more cultural exchange, more cuisine by not flying than by flying. And so every year I'm like, oh, I'll go for another year because my life is better through personal experience.
Right.
I did have a couple months of like, I had to give up some money because I was scheduled to, or I was working. I'd almost booked some talks to give in Europe.
Sure.
And I sacrificed time with the family because my sister had round trip tickets to Tokyo, New York, Tokyo, $800 round trip. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll start after I get back. But I said, no, I'm trying to live by my values. And so I missed that trip, but I'm spending more time with my family net as a result of there's family far away that I'm not seeing, but the family that's closer, I'm seeing more of.
Right.
And if people are living far away from their families and using flying to get closer, I think flying is actually knowing that you could fly to see them is what's enabling you to live far apart in the first place. People associate flying with more money and more family, but I think that it's taking away money and forcing them to work more and leading them to live lives of sacrifice in order to do this thing, to get them away, instead of learning to connect with their community and they live far away from their family and loved ones instead of living close with them. Now, most people, their addiction is now kicking in and they're saying, oh, but for me, it's different.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure it is for you different. But if you stopped flying, your life would change in ways that you would look back and say, oh my God, I was lying to myself. Just like if you're addicted to whatever you're addicted to, sugar or alcohol or gambling or cocaine, you know the withdrawal is going to suck.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the withdrawal is living by your values. It's if it was, I don't know, sugar or alcohol or cocaine, on the other side of it is going to be exercise and healthy diet and earning a living. This is, I want to go back to the leadership today of the Alcoholics Anonymous, drinking.
Yeah.
If you haven't stopped drinking and you're telling others what to do, there's 3 big things that result from this. One, you don't have any credibility. People aren't paying attention to you. You think they are, but once you're drinking, or if you're telling people to do something and you're not doing it yourself, they're like, yeah, whatever. No one, So one, you lose credibility.
Sure.
Two, you don't know what the change means. You think it's like, just say no, and it's just a matter of like willpower or just a decision that you make.
Right.
It's not. It's, you got to changing a habit, or in this case, many habits, adding up to a full lifestyle. First of all, you got to face what's causing you to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
If it's alcohol, maybe you're depressed, maybe you're insecure. And once you stop drinking, you got to face that. Right. So that means you got to deal with these emotions, and you got to deal with the suffering. Maybe you party all the time, mm-hmm. and now you realize you got to talk to people instead of being the garrulous person. What it takes is you got to find new friends, or change the relationship you have with your existing friends. Change your relationship with your family. You probably have to buy different things. You have to live a different lifestyle. You have to probably change the layout of your home.
Right.
And what helps is support from other people. You got to find mm-hmm. very supportive people. It helps to find people who've gone through it before, not people who are telling you what to do, but people who've gone through that shift before. Suddenly role models become very important. Who are your mm-hmm. role models going to be? What are your new beliefs going to be? Right. That's what the shift is, not a lack of facts and figures, right. Not telling someone, Bangladesh, it's going to be underwater. 50 million people are going to be displaced. If what you're dealing with is your own depression, that actually tells people, that's insensitive to tell people that. Mm-hmm. It makes people feel, it's saying what matters to you is actually less important than all this other stuff. Well, 50 million people is certainly bigger than one, but you're motivated by your feelings, not right. by those other things. If you do get through those feelings, then you will start caring for others, but not while you care about yourself first. So that was the second thing. The third thing is, if you haven't gone through the change, you haven't gone to the other side and found the joys and rewards that I'm talking about.
Right.
So all you can share is compliance and a promise of something to come.
Right.
But if I may speak in Martin Luther King language, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. And that is a more joyful living, spending more time with your community and friends and family, less time buying stuff for just out of craving.
Right.
And I've learned that if you want to stand tall, you have to learn to get on your knees. And that means sometimes you have to, for me, it's picking up garbage. For me, it means facing that I've been doing stuff that I knew brought me pleasure at other people's expense. I know that out of the back of the jet was not rainbows and unicorns. Mm-hmm. It was pollution. And right. Where did it come from? It came out of displacing people from the land, displacing wildlife from land, and turning it into, I'm sure you've seen pictures of the flames shooting out from the Iraqi war right. when they set that was the Fertile Crescent. The Fertile Crescent is a desert. Where civilization began, because there was so much life, is a desert. That didn't just happen.
Right.
And then we set it on fire. And where did they get the money to do all that stuff? Well, the ticket, the airline wasn't just give me a ticket. I was paying for it. So on the far side of it, so I have to face that. I had to face that I was saying other people are causing it, but not me. It's like people sitting in traffic being like, other people causing traffic. Mm-hmm. We all do.
Right.
But when you get to the far side, I don't know how well people understand the feeling of stewardship. I'm not a parent. You're a parent. Mm-hmm. There's a feeling of love for this helpless child when you when you take care of someone. Mm-hmm. And I have not felt that, but I've felt more connection to the people that they say, oh, I'm learning about other cultures. I believe that I'm learning more about them. They're visiting to see nature. Mm-hmm. I believe the plants that I'm growing, that I cook, that I eat, these are nature isn't all out there. Mm-hmm. It's everywhere.
Right.
I mean, it's not just like up the Amazon or around surrounding Machu Picchu. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And to the extent that we think we have to travel to get to it, we are depriving ourselves of the experience of it, whereas it could be everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a quote that I actually heard recently. I don't remember who said it, but somebody said it recently and it really, really resonated with me. And that was that nature isn't a place that we visit. It's not a place that we go visit on the weekend and then we enjoy it and then we come back home. We are always in nature, like everywhere. Just because you're in your house doesn't mean it's not nature. You're still intricately connected to nature, and you're connected to the whole world around you. And by thinking of nature as that thing that you go to visit on the weekends or that you go to see during the summer, you're distancing yourself and you're kind of blinding yourself from a deep connection that allows you to, feel less.
And by flipping that around, if you choose to participate in it as much as you can, as much as you want, there's no end to the joy, to what it brings you.